everybody, welcome to G for G on YouTube. Today we're in Heroes of the Storm. I'm your host, Napalm Dawn. That's Sally Whitemane, and we're going to talk about her. So Whitemane is a bit of a controversial hero currently in Heroes of the Storm. It's controversial because people consider her the hero nobody asked for. However, I think they might regret that at this point in time. Whitemane is putting out healing numbers that could potentially be some of the strongest healing numbers we've seen in some time. Every time I see Whitemane's out on the field, they put up huge numbers. I've played her twice so far, and I have MVP'd twice. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop up my screenshots over here, and I will show you guys what I've done so far in the two matches for her, and I'll discuss a build and we'll watch one of the games. So this was my first game on her. It was 626-2 with the best healing in the game, and my stats wound up like this: 61k PvE damage, 42k PvP. Actually, that's pretty good, as I beat out Azul, I beat out the Oriole, I beat out a Zarya, and a Murky. I also did 109k healing and had 20k experience. One of the highest on the server was third place for just experience, and decimated the enemy Oriole's healing, and she died 7 times. I had only died twice. One of which was just Zarya not getting in the way and tanking. My second match, and this is the one we're going to watch, I'm 424-0 with 44% healing done. And the numbers on that game, so I initially started off behind this Lucio in the very beginning. However, I destroyed him by the end by the tune of another 30k. So 9k experience, was a little weak on this one, but still really solid on the team. 31k siege damage or PvE damage, low on this one. 35k hero damage, middle of the pack on this one, not real high, not super low. And so the builds, well, before we talk about the builds, let's talk about her abilities. She's considered range support with a medium difficulty. She has Desperate Plea, heal an allied hero for 145 and gain a desperation stack for 4 seconds. Desperation increases Desperate Plea's mana cost by 60 and stacks up to 3 times. Inquisition, you channel on an enemy hero, sort of like Asmodan, for up to 3 seconds, dealing damage and slowing them. Searing Lash, after a half a second, smite enemies in a straight line for 82. If it hits the enemy hero, a second strike occurs. So basically, this will put out a line across the field, kind of like one piece of a cross. If it hits an enemy hero, the crossbar of the cross, or the perpendicular bar, goes off, just like the icon shows. So if you think of the vertical line is when you cast a spell, if anybody gets hit by it, it then does the horizontal line. Zeal is her passive, or her trait. Whitemane's healing abilities apply Zeal for 8 seconds. Allies with Zeal are healed for 100% of the damage Whitemane does to heroes. This is key. It's not PvE damage, it's PvP. So if up to 3 characters have Zeal on them, and then you Inquisition somebody, they all get healed. So it's kind of like Shadow Priesting. It's a little bit like a Mind Flay in World of Warcraft. First heroic, which I have not used yet, Scarlet Aegis, bolsters spirits of nearby allied heroes, healing them for 250 and granting them 40 armor for 4, or Divine Reckoning. Consecrate an area. After a second, consecrate an area for 4 seconds, dealing 50 damage every 0.5, so 100 damage a second for 4 seconds to enemies inside of it. Think of it as Tyrandi's Star Shower ultimate. So they're both good, but one to me is a little bit higher skill than the other. Divine Reckoning, I consider it higher skill because you want to cast it after you have a bunch of Desperate Pleas out, and then the Divine Reckoning does huge damage that heals your targets, whereas Scarlet Aegis is a set it and forget it. Both of these, however, to me, operate within the same sphere of when they're useful, which is big grouped up fights. That's what I think of it as. So, say you are contesting um, Cursed Hollow. Say you are contesting a Raven Idol, and there's a bunch of people popped up, or you're doing um, little skeleton towers on that match where you have to kill the 30 skeletons and everything, and everybody's fighting. Both of these are clumped up giant AoE. It's the only difference is Divine Reckoning is the enemy team clumping, where Scarlet Aegis is your team clumping up. However, Divine Reckoning I think is a little bit higher skill, because if you put it out without a lot of zeal and desperate pleas out there, including on yourself, you're just sort of wasting it. Where Scarlet Aegis is more just about healing your own team. So that's why I consider Divine Reckoning a little bit of a higher skill ultimate. So now for talents, what I saw on the first Whitemane that I went up against, who put up huge numbers, I've tried to emulate the build, and I think it works. So in tier 1 we have Martyrdom. Each stack of Desperation increases Desperate Pleas healing by 30%. So it removes the risk reward over there, just more makes it a little bit more reward there. But I go with Clemency. So Clemency chews up your Inquisition cooldown. However, you can beam a friendly with Inquisition, a friendly Inquisition, and heal them while channeling. And you also reduce the cooldown by 3 seconds. So this is actually key. Even if you don't use Clemency a whole lot to directly heal an ally, by Inquisition being up more frequently, you are healing them more through Desperate Plea and Zeal. Righteous Flame. Searing Lash does more damage against enemies or stunned, rude, silenced, or slowed. This is comp-based. I think this could have good rewards if you are running a very heavy crowd control comp. Pity the Frail. Allies below 50% health receive more Zeal healing. It kind of reminds me of like a lot of classes' Mastery in World of Warcraft, especially Shamans. Unwavering Faith. Reduce Desperate Pleas mana cost by 30. Upon reaching 3 stacks, gain a shield. I haven't picked this. I've gone with High Inquisitor. Casting Inquisition instantly removes all stacks of Desperation and restores mana per stack. I like this one. And this is Searing Lash restores mana. I've not really seen a Searing Lash build yet. But again, if the comp is good enough, this may be handy. Upon reaching 2 stacks of Desperation, Whitemane gains her own Zeal. Activate to gain spell power but lose armor. Make an ally unstoppable. I haven't chose this yet. I've always gone with Zealous Spirit. It seems to work well as she gains her own stack of Zeal without having to have her self-cast. So it's just a way of staying alive and being your own health battery. Fanatical Power, considering more spell damage equals more spell power equals more damage, that equals more healing for her. Divine Reckoning, we've already talked about that. Casting Desperate Plea on an ally heals Whitemane for 125, but it does not grant Zeal. Harsh Discipline, hitting a hero with Searing Lash while they're being targeted by Inquisition roots them. Not sure how that works out unless you quickly cast Searing followed up by an Inquisition and they run into both. Guiding Light. Whenever Zeal is applied to allies other than Whitemane, it grants them movement speed. This is probably good for dive comp over here. Like a Zeratul going in, or a Diva or something like that. I've always gone with Radiance. Upon reaching 3 stacks of Desperation, all allies with Zeal are healed. Upon casting Inquisition, it can chain to additional targets. If they clump up enough, this might be good. Lashing Out deals more damage and reduces the cooldown if it hits a hero. And I've always gone with Judgment Day, which is especially good with like Zarya Grab Bombs and other AoE ults and everything. But we have Scarlet Crusade, makes them unstoppable and heals more. Inquisition reduces all damage the target deals by 75%. So that's just a big... considering this does not cost anything, like the old miniaturized debuffs and everything, This is actually probably really strong, especially if they have a dive like a Butcher. And Purge the Wicked. Activate to blast an enemy hero with Holy Fire, reducing their armor, dealing a lot of damage. This seems a very skilled ult, or skilled talent, that if you got a lot of Zeal out, this would be good, but I think all of the other heroic bumps work out particularly well. So we're going to watch this one on a speed up, and you can see how my second game with her went. You'll see that I'm dealing with a Zeratul, Nazebo, Garrosh, and Butcher on my team, whereas they have the Lucio, Chen as a tank, Kel'Thuzad, Gul'dan as DPS, and Muradin. So we'll speed this up a little bit for this beginning part. We're going to double click on myself, which will follow me. Alright, now we're going to slow it down. So you can see basically I have a bunch of Zeal out. I retreat and then get aggressive positions when I see what is happening with the enemy. Garrosh, knowing Garrosh dives, Zeratul dives, they have some Zeal. Beaming the Gul'dan because he's a squishy. Hit him with a Searing Lash. Gonna get a Zeal on the Garrosh. Get some auto attacks in there. With Whitemane, you have to be sort of a good... That was almost scary right there. With her, you kind of need to be like a good boxer. You have to get a lot of good feints, dips, ducks, dodges, and dives. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. That's kind of the way to go with her, is that you've got to retreat until you see what the enemy team is doing over here. And there I beam, so that, what I just did to the Zeratul is an example of using a friendly Inquisition. Also, popping tanks is good, because tanks being a little bit slower means you're going to get a pretty good beam time on them. And here's the stats so far. So Lucio's beating me at this point, but I've done more hero damage than he has and got a little bit more experience. So what I'm saying about you almost have to act like a good boxer. You've got to dip out when you don't really know the lay of the land on the enemy team, and when your cooldowns are not up, and then dive back in when you have things, especially Inquisition. So here I've got the Butcher, I've got the Garrosh, I use the friendly Inquisition, got some auto attacks in there, there's an enemy beam, I had two people with Zeal, so it's really solid healing. I get the Zeratul because he's diving in. I just get an orb to help out. I know the Muradin's coming, but I'm waiting for cooldowns. Alright, now I'm going to beam the Gul'dan, which kept up the Zeratul. Got Butcher, Garrosh ready. And now you'll see that Garrosh's health goes up. She is very easy. I find this is an easy character to lose your nerve on in major fights. I think, especially if you're worried about a lot of enemy dive or heavy enemy crowd control, I think Whitemane is an easy tune to panic on. Because you're like, oh my god, I gotta make sure there's a whole lot of Zeals out before I do damage. You know, I don't want to do damage and waste it by Zeal not being on people. Do I have Zeal on the right people? And there's so much happening. So, fortunately, the graphic of who has Zeal is really visible. However, in a clump, with maybe, so right there, the Nazebo and the Garrosh were really clumped up. It might have been hard to tell if just one of them had Zeal or if they both did. And that's where it gets a little panicky on her. She doesn't really have much in the way of escapes, so you have to be careful. And that is definitely a risky thing about the character. You're paid for having aggressive positioning, but you don't really have a way out of it, just in case. And if we look at the stats now, I'm ahead of the Lucio, but I'm not exactly clobbering him. See, you'll notice I have a very heartbeat way of approaching battles. I'm in, I'm out. I'm in, I'm out. Beam Garrosh there. It's trying to move up and get an orb. Here's another dicey situation for me, but fortunately Garrosh does a taunt. I healed him through Zeal. And he's relatively healthy, especially with his own armor. Here the Dweebo and I just back out because we've got camps and I want to be full for it. So we'll speed it up until I get back to the action. So there, that was actually dumb. I did not have Zeal on a low Garrosh and I beamed ahead of time. That was not that smart on my part. So now I'm pretty much ready for an engagement in case it happens. There's a couple Zeals out. We get some good damage from the enemy Kel'Thuzad. And there, the front line was Zealed, and I Inquisition their target, which is... Here I was trying to Inquisition the Zeratul as he ran away, but he kept out of my range. And the Zebo and I just fuck up that Chen's life over there. We sent him back to Pandaria with no sticky buns. Alright, so at this point, now I'm really pulled ahead of the Lucio, but he hasn't died yet. And he's not putting up the other numbers that I am, that's for sure. See here, I retreat a little bit, I see what the Zeratul's doing, I see what the enemy team is doing. I come back in, he goes too far. But I'm able to keep him up, not even really by targeting him. I just went for the enemy. Again, Zeratul's too far ahead of me to do anything. I try to get a Searing Lash in, but I missed. And I missed. And I missed again. And I missed. So I had a Zeal on myself because I thought maybe we were gonna go in for something. I think where Whitemane is a really good healer is for that gerbated turn and burn, where you're beginning to retreat, an enemy team member steps out too far, and you just pick them off. So yeah, you saw some really, really good healing on the Garrosh there. However, I didn't have Zeal on myself. He's got Zeal. I'm trying to get the Dweebo. Kel'Thuzad's obliterated. Garrosh is still running with my Zeal. I Inquisitored that Chen there. I've got everybody in front of me running with Zeal, so this is a good time for some damage, but my mana's super low. I'm resorting to autos for damage. And you can see my heartbeat style over there. It's just, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. And I'm just gonna leave for mana. So the Garrosh has been happy with my heals. Got a lot of my front line with Zeal at this point. Got some autos in. And now I'm at the point where I'm just absolutely destroying the Lucio, who has finally died. Inquisitor, friendly Dweebo. Missed Chen with a lash. That really healed Dweebo down there on that Zeal. Haven't really seen my own ult go out much yet. I think maybe on the higher speeds it's just a little bit harder to recognize. Unfortunately, Searing Lash gains nothing against PvE. You don't get the cross off of it at all. It might honestly just be better to save the mana and just never really Searing Lash trash that much. Here, I just retreat quickly for mana. And I'm 4 and 22, so I've already hit my Heroes of the Storm, and I'm now 20k over the enemy Lucio, who's now died twice. Coming back in, I've got the Garrosh with the Zeal. Butcher had a Zeal coming up behind us. Move up to give the Butcher a little bit of health. Now I'm on the Garrosh. I think I have an ultimate coming out here pretty soon. Yep, there it is. Which comboed well with Dweebo, and then the match is over. And about 30k more healing than the enemy Lucio. And the MVP. So there you go, guys. There's Whitemane in action. I discussed the build that I go with. It seems to be pretty well. I have not looked on Heroes Fire or anything to see if it is a highly winning build or anything. My favorite of the 3 default skins for her is definitely that one. Although this one makes her face look a little bit less resty bitch face. And this is the classic WoW look. However, that's what I'm going with. This skin I like too. I kind of like the contrast. She looks really, really emo and evil on this one. I did not go with the store skins on this one because this is about the only one that I like. I was not that big of a fan of this one. And it kind of reminds me of Li Ming's skins a little bit. And really was not that big of a fan of this one either. If I did go with the store skins, I think I would be running with that one. And if you were a World of Warcraft fan, you'll recognize that hat as Whitemane Chapeau, which was a drop off of her in Scarlet Monastery. She was the boss who would come out from behind the doors and resurrect the guy that you just killed, and the two of them go ahead and fight you. This one reminds me a little bit of an Alexstrasza skin. The colors are a little bit different, but it's similar, and the one that it reminds me of is, there's Alexstrasza. It reminds me of this skin a little bit. When I use Alexstrasza, I tend to go with that one, but then I also have that one that I use too. So those two kind of similar. This looks a little bit like Sylvanas to me. Similar armor boob cup over there. So there you go, guys. There is Sally Whitemane within the game. I think she's very strong. Personally, I think she's probably going to take a little bit of a nerf. She seems to be doing her job exceptionally well. And if Rainer's buffs recently are any indication, I will think that she's going to get knocked down just a little bit. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let me know what you think about Whitemane.